Chapter 1. The Consent Form. The form asked him to list next of kin, and Ambrose Whitlock had been trying to answer that question for 140 years. He sat in the intake room of the Vesper Clinic at midnight with a pen he did not need to grip and a document he had read 4 times, and under next of kin, he wrote nothing, because there was nobody left to notify if the treatment killed him, which was, when he thought about it, the entire reason he wanted the treatment. The pen was very light. Everything modern was very light. He remembered when a pen had weight. "You're doing it wrong," said a voice from the doorway. He did not startle. He had not startled at anything in 300 years. He simply turned his head, unhurried, and found a woman leaning against the frame with a clipboard she wasn't reading, and an expression he would later learn was her resting state, delighted and about to make it his problem. "I beg your pardon," Ambrose said. "The form, you left the top part blank." She came in without being invited, which meant she was staff, because the clinic was a private dwelling and the wards on it were older than most of the city. Name, age, turning date. You wrote your name and then just stopped, like the rest of it was optional. "My age is 700 years, Ambrose said. "The box allows for 3 digits. "See, that's a great line, and you said it like you were reading a gas bill." She dropped into the chair opposite him, folded her legs up under her, and looked at him the way a child looks at a wrapped present. "Sylvie, Ames. I run adjustment. You must be the reversal consult. Dr. Okonkwo said an ancient booked in, and I said, no she did not, they never book in. And here you are, blank form and everything." "Adjustment," he repeated. "I help the newly turned stop screaming and start living." She said living like it was a place she owned property. 6 weeks in, most of them can hold a conversation without crying about their dead goldfish. It's rewarding. You'd hate it. "I would," Ambrose agreed. He set the pen down, then picked it up again, and regarded it with mild distrust. "This pen weighs nothing." "It's a pen." In my day, a pen had consequences. One could feel the commitment arrive in the wrist. This is like signing away one's existence with a feather borrowed from a very small bird. He turned it over in his still fingers. "It is the least serious object I have ever been asked to hold. I once watched a man sign a treaty in his own blood, purely for the drama of the thing." "Did it work?" "It started a war." The blood was, in the end, the most sincere part of the document. A pause. "I have never cared for pageantry." There was a silence. Sylvie let it sit, which surprised him. Most people filled silences. She just watched him with those bright, unhurried eyes, pale as all of them were pale, cold as all of them were cold, and utterly, offensively alive. "So," she said, "the reversal. You want to be human again." "I want to stop." "Stop what?" "Being this." He set the pen down. "Dr. Okonkwo believes she can strip the change out of me, return me to a body that ages, that ends. It has never been done on someone my age. There is a real chance it unmakes me entirely." He looked at the blank next of kin line. "I have made my peace with that chance." Sylvie was quiet for a moment. Then she said, gently, and it was the first gentle thing she'd said, "That's the saddest thing I've heard all week, and I work with people who woke up dead on a Tuesday. You find immortality tragic to give up. I find it tragic to keep. We are unlikely to persuade one another before dawn. Try me. I've got nowhere to be for eternity." She grinned. "Literally, that's the whole point." "Then persuade me," Ambrose said, and was faintly surprised to hear himself say it. "You have until dawn and a captive audience. Make the argument for 700 more years of this." "Easy. Name the best thing that's happened to you in the last century." "I do not think in bests." Name anything then. 1 good hour. Go. He was silent. See, that's not an argument for the needle, Sylvie said, and the delight went quiet and serious for a second. That's an argument for how you've been doing it. Those are different problems, and one of them a doctor cannot fix. And I'm going to spend all night proving it to you, and you're going to hate that too. Before he could decide whether to answer, the door opened again, and a man came in who moved like every step cost him money. He was tall and gray and dressed in a cardigan that had been fashionable during a war, and he carried the specific weariness of someone who had been at a desk for 400 years and expected to be there for 400 more. Sylvie, the man said, the stabilizer vault. Desmond, I'm mid-consult. The stabilizer vault, Desmond said again, in the tone of a nature documentarian narrating the moment the herd notices the lions, is empty. I have observed this. I have observed it 3 times, in case my eyes, which are old, had begun inventing catastrophes for entertainment. They had not. It is empty. Sylvie was already on her feet. That's not possible. There were 60 doses in there at 10 o'clock. I signed the log. The log is also missing its most recent page, Desmond said. Fascinating, from a purely archival standpoint. Devastating, from every other standpoint. We have 9 patients under 6 weeks turned. Without a dose before sunrise, 4 of them will go into thirst shock. I have watched thirst shock. It is the single least dignified way a person can stop existing. And I have seen a duke die of gout. The room changed. Ambrose felt it change. Sylvie's delight didn't vanish so much as reorganize itself into something with edges, and he understood, watching her, that the 2 things lived in the same place in her, the joy and the ferocity. She was already at the wall-mounted terminal, pulling the corridor feed. Cameras, she said. Vault corridor, 10 to midnight. The footage was gray and silent. A figure in a maintenance coat crossed the frame, unhurried, carrying a case. He knew the wards. He knew the blind spot by the fire door. He turned once, briefly, toward the lens, the way a man checks a mirror he has forgotten he no longer casts in. And Ambrose, who had not risen from his chair, went very still. He had been still before. This was a different kind. This was the stillness of a man looking at a face he had last seen leaning over a grave in the year 1823. You know him, Sylvie said. She was watching Ambrose, not the screen. She missed nothing. He would learn that too. You just went quiet in a way you weren't quiet a second ago. You know him. I knew him, Ambrose said. A long time ago. His name is Cyrus Ardell. We buried the same people. Great. Fantastic. Who is he? He is what happens, Ambrose said slowly, to someone like me who does not book an appointment at a clinic. He is the other ending. Desmond folded his hands. I find this all very illuminating, and also we have until sunrise, which is in 5 hours and 50 minutes, and I cannot chase anyone. My chasing days concluded around the Congress of Vienna. Sylvie turned on Ambrose, both hands on the desk, leaning in. You recognize him. Nobody else in this building has laid eyes on him in 200 years. I know every fence, every safe house, every hole in this city where a turned vampire goes when they've got something hot to sell, but I don't know his face, and you do. She was close now, close enough that if either of them breathed, it would have stirred the air between them, and neither of them did, and that absence sat in the room like a held note. You came here tonight to stop being a vampire. I need you to be one for 5 more hours. Ambrose looked at the blank form. At the box that allowed for 3 digits. At the woman who thought his death wish was the saddest thing she'd heard all week and had, somehow, made him feel it too. The appointment will keep, he said, and stood. Purebloods have run this clinic since before your grandmother, and they will run it tomorrow. Dr. Okonkwo will still have her needle. I will still have my 700 years. Is that a yes? That felt like a yes wearing a very heavy coat. It is a yes, Ambrose said, wearing a very heavy coat. Sylvie was already grabbing her jacket. Desmond, hold the patients. Cold cloths, keep them talking. Do the thing where you describe the fall of empires until they forget they're dying. It is my only party trick, Desmond said, and it works every time. Chapter 2. The Shambles. The city at 1 a.m. belonged to them, which is to say it belonged to the sleepless and the dead, and Ambrose could no longer tell which category he preferred. You walk like a funeral, Sylvie said, 3 streets from the clinic. Can you go faster? We're on a clock and you're doing the tragic stroll thing. I have never once been late, Ambrose said, in 700 years. Consider the mathematics of that. Consider that 4 kids are dying and you're strolling like the pavement did something to your family. He went faster. She led him east, off the lit streets, into a lane he would have sworn was a dead end until she pressed her palm flat to a brick that looked like every other brick and it wasn't. The wall gave. Behind it was noise, warm human noise, a night market throbbing under strings of bare bulbs, food carts and card tables, and the specific electric hum of a place that only exists after midnight. The Shambles, Sylvie said. Humans think it's a pop-up food thing. It is a pop-up food thing. It's also where our lot does business under it. You keep your eyes open for Ardell, I'll ask around. And stay close, because to everyone in here you look exactly like what you are, and it makes them nervous. What do I look like? Like the oldest thing in the room deciding whether the room is worth the trouble. She said it lightly, but she glanced at him when she said it, and there was something under the glance. It's a whole vibe. Girls used to write poems about it, come on. They moved through the crowd, and Ambrose became aware of a thing he had spent centuries not thinking about, which was that he and Sylvie were the only 2 cold points in a river of warm bodies. Everyone else steamed faintly in the night air, alive, blood loud under their skin. The 2 of them moved through it giving off nothing, and the strange part, the part that unsettled him, was that it did not feel lonely walking beside her. It felt like being one of a matched pair of stones. There, Sylvie murmured, feeding house. He'll have needed to top up. Nobody carries 60 doses across a city on an empty stomach. The place was called the Marrow, and it was quieter inside, low-lit, a member's hush over everything. She flashed something at the door and they were in. Ambrose had not fed properly in weeks. He had been rationing himself, thinning himself, the private starvation of a man trying to make his body forget what it was before he asked a doctor to make it official. You're gray, Sylvie said, reading him again, because she was always reading him. When did you last feed? I am managing. You're not, though. Your hands went still about an hour ago and not in the scary way, in the low-fuel way. I've watched 100 people run their tank dry telling me they were managing. She steered him to a booth, signaled, and a discreet attendant brought 2 glasses. Dark and warm and ethically sourced from the clinic's own donors, because whatever else this world was, it had learned to be tidy about the one thing it needed. Drink. I'm not chasing a 200-year-old grudge across a city with a partner who's going to fold at a fire door. He drank. He hated how much his body wanted it. That was the trouble. That had always been the trouble. The wanting never stopped. 700 years and the hunger was as fresh as the first night. And every time he fed, he was reminded that the thing he was would go on wanting forever. And forever was exactly what he was trying to end. Across the booth, Sylvie drank hers the way she seemed to do everything, with an appalling, luminous appetite, her eyes half closing, a small, satisfied sound at the back of her throat. God, I love this, she said. Is that awful? Dr. Okonkwo says I have to model healthy adjustment, and here I am purring. I love it. I love being able to hear a heartbeat across a street. I love that I'll get to see what the ocean does in 300 years. I love that nothing, and I mean nothing, can make me go back to the person who was scared all the time. You were scared all the time, Ambrose said. It was not a question. He had learned, over centuries, to hear the shape of a wound in how brightly a person insisted on its opposite. Sylvie set her glass down. For a moment, the delight went somewhere else and left her face oddly young. I had a life, she said. Before. It was small and it was frightened, and it was going to be over in a normal number of years, and I was so relieved about that. Isn't that a terrible thing? I was relieved I wouldn't have to keep being brave for very long. And then I got sick, and someone gave me a choice at the worst possible moment, and I said yes for the pettiest reason. I wasn't ready. I just wasn't ready to stop. She looked up. And then I wasn't scared anymore. Not of the big thing. So now I say yes to everything, because it turns out the only thing I was ever really afraid of was running out of time, and I fixed it. You did not fix it, Ambrose said quietly. You postponed it. Everyone you say yes to still runs out. Yeah, she held his eyes. That's the part you think I don't know. And you're wrong. Drink your dinner, we've got a thief to catch. He drank his dinner, and he thought, against 700 years of discipline, that he would like very much to know who had frightened her, so that he could be extremely still in front of them. Your eyes just did the thing, Sylvie said. What thing? The old thing. Went dark at the edges. Happens when one of us is hungrier than we're admitting. She tilted her head, unhurried, reading him. Or when we're looking at something we want and telling ourselves we're not. Which one was it? Finish your dinner. That's not a no. It is a no shaped like a change of subject. I am 700 years old. I own a great many of them. She laughed, but she did not look away, and for a moment, across the low, warm dark of the booth, neither of them performed the breathing that rooms full of humans expected, and the silence of two people not breathing at each other was, he discovered, a great deal louder than any heartbeat could have been. For the record, she said, standing, offering him a cold hand up he did not need and took anyway. That record you keep over there, in the box where the pulse used to be. Wanting things was never the tragedy. The tragedy is deciding you've gotten too old to be caught wanting them. She pulled him to his feet. Come on, thief. They found the trail at the back of the marrow, from a woman who owed Sylvie a favor and paid it in a single sentence. The old one, the gray coat. He'd asked about the deadline under Farringdon, and he'd asked twice, like he wasn't sure he'd been heard. The deadline, Sylvie said, back out in the cold, moving fast now. Abandoned tube station. Deep one. Our lot uses it for handoffs because there's no cameras and no sun risk. You can wait out a whole day down there if a deal goes long. She glanced sideways. You've gone quiet again. He asked twice, Ambrose said. Cyrus. He never repeated himself. When I knew him, he said things once, precisely, and expected the world to have listened. People change in 200 years. No, Ambrose said. They accumulate. It is worse. Chapter 3. The Deadline and the Wheel. The station under Farringdon had been closed since before Sylvie was born, human or otherwise, and the stairs down went black in a way that even their eyes had to argue with. Okay, Sylvie breathed, and for once the delight was on a low flame, replaced by focus. He's old, he's fed, he's got 60 doses and a reason. If he's still down here, we do not spook him. He drops that case wrong and the vials shatter, and then nobody's saving those kids. Not him, not us. So we go slow, and you keep me from walking into a wall because I can't see and you apparently can. I can see, Ambrose said. Take my arm. She took his arm. Her hand closed around his forearm, and it was not warm, because nothing about either of them was warm, and that was the thing he kept getting caught on all night. That in every story he'd ever heard, the mortal girl's warm hand was supposed to be the miracle against the vampire's cold. But Sylvie's hand was as cold as his. They matched. And matching, he was discovering, undid something in him that warmth never had, because warmth would have been a difference to marvel at, and this was a sameness to belong to. They went down. The platform opened out, tiled and dead. A single derelict train slumped at the edge of the tunnel like a beast that had lain down to die mid-stride. Old posters hung in rags. Water ticked somewhere. "He's not here," Sylvie whispered. "Or he was, and he's gone. Damn it, we're burning time." A sound down the tunnel. Both of them went still, that instant total predator stillness, and for a heartbeat that neither of them had, they stood pressed together in the dark of the dead train's shadow, her back against his chest, his hand flat over her sternum to hold her behind him, and it was only a rat in the end, a fat old tunnel rat going about its night. But by the time they knew it was a rat, they had already stopped pretending the closeness was about cover. "That was a rat," Sylvie said, not moving. "It was." "You can let go of me now." "I am aware." She turned inside the circle of his arm, and in the pitch black she could not see his face, and he could see hers perfectly. And that was the most unfair he had felt in a century. "Ambrose," she said. "Later, when the kids aren't dying, remind me to have a feeling about this." "I will make a note," he said gravely, and she laughed, and the laugh came apart the tension like a struck bell, and they climbed back toward the street with a fresh lead scratched into the dust by the ticket booth in a hand Ambrose recognized. 3 words and an arrow. "Where it never sleeps." "That's not cryptic, that's just annoying," Sylvie said, back in the air, checking the sky, which was still safely black. "Where it never sleeps. Everything's open all night in this city, that's the whole—" "Oh," she stopped. "Oh no, oh he did not." "What?" "The pier, the all-night fun fair on the pier. It runs till dawn on weekends. It's the one place a vampire can stand in a crowd of screaming humans and hand off a case and nobody looks twice because everyone's already screaming." She was already walking. "He's meeting his buyer at the fun fair. Of course he is. Come on, old man. You're about to have the worst night of your life, and I mean that as a compliment." The pier was a wall of light and sound, and Ambrose stopped at the turnstile the way a man stops at the edge of a cold sea. "I have never," he said, "been anywhere like this. In 700 years. There was less neon. Inside, it was chaos with a heartbeat. Rides screamed overhead. Somewhere a machine played the same 8 notes of a song forever. The air was thick with sugar and fried oil, and the massed, warm blood of 1,000 delighted humans. And through all of it moved Sylvie, scanning faces. And beside her moved Ambrose, appalled and unable to look away. "What is that man eating?" he said. "That's a churro." "It is on fire. It's cinnamon. Focus." "You cannot focus. There is a bear the size of a coach, and a child is winning it." She grabbed his sleeve and pulled him past a bank of machines, and one of them caught him, physically caught him, a glass box full of stuffed animals and a hovering chrome claw, and a small boy feeding it coins with the concentration of a surgeon and losing, again and again, the claw closing on nothing and rising empty. "That machine is rigged," Ambrose said. "Everyone knows the machine is rigged. Ardell, where's Ardell? Help me look." "It is stealing from a child." "Ambrose." "The tension is set so the claw cannot close with sufficient force. It is designed to fail. That is fraud." He had stopped walking entirely. 700 years of composure, and it had met its match, and its match was a claw machine. "I could fix it in a moment." "I will pay you," Sylvie said, hauling him bodily onward, £1,000 to catch this thief before you catch that machine. Later, I promise you, later, you can have your reckoning with the claw. Right now, we are looking for a gray coat." They pressed on through the sugar and the screaming, and Ambrose kept catching on things, a fortune-telling machine, a man dressed as an enormous foam sausage, a ride that appeared expressly designed to kill the people strapped into it, who were shrieking with what he slowly understood was joy. "They pay for that," he said. "They pay for that. To be frightened. To be frightened and then survive it. That's the whole appeal. You're terrified, the ride stops, you're alive. And for about 10 seconds, the entire world is hilarious. She glanced at him. You'd recognize the feeling, if you ever let yourself be scared of anything. I am scared of a great many things. Name one. This churro. Ambrose. It is on fire. A child is eating it. No one is concerned but me. But he said it while watching her, and then he heard himself say the true thing, quietly, the way a man sets down something heavy. I do not hate it, you know. The thing you have decided I hate. Sylvie slowed. What do you mean? Immortality. You have made me a man who hates living forever, and it is kinder than the truth, so I let you. The light slid over his still face as they walked. I do not hate forever. I loved it once. I loved a great many people inside it. That was the difficulty. I did not run out of worlds, Sylvie. I ran out of the people I wanted to see it with, one funeral at a time, until I worked out that the safest number of people to love was none, and the safest length of time to be alive was over. She did not say anything clever, for once. She looked at the ride full of screaming, delighted, terrified, living strangers, and then she took his hand, cold and cold, and held it, and did not let go. That's not a reason to end, she said finally. That's just a reason to be lonely with company. Come on, gray coat. They found the gray coat by the Ferris wheel. Cyrus Ardell stood at the base of the great slow wheel, the case at his feet, and he was not selling. That was the first wrong thing. He was standing with the stillness Ambrose knew from the inside, watching the wheel turn, watching the lit gondolas rise and fall with their cargo of laughing warm strangers, and his face, old as the century, was doing something no buyer would want to see. It was grieving. He's early, Sylvie breathed, or the buyer's late. We've got a window. Ambrose, this is the part where I need you. I can talk down a scared newborn all night long, but I have never met this man, and you have. So you go first, you go slow, and whatever you do not let him think we've come to take the case by force, because a cornered old vampire near a wheel full of humans is the worst thing I can imagine. Sylvie. What? He was looking at the wheel, and then at her, and something in him had come loose in the dark of the dead line, and had not gone back. When this is done, Ambrose said, I would like to ride that. Sylvie stared at him, and then her whole face opened, the way a window opens, and she said, Oh, you enormous idiot! You're going to be so annoying about this. Yes, fine. We ride the wheel. Now go save some children. But before he went, because the wheel was turning and the buyer was late and there might not be an after, she pulled a receipt out of her jacket pocket and a stub of pencil, and she wrote across the back of it, fast, Item 1, the wheel, and pressed it into his cold hand. For a moment, neither of them let go of the receipt, which meant neither of them let go of the other's hand, and they stood at the foot of the turning wheel, two cold, still points in all that warm, screaming light, close enough that if either of them had breathed, it would have meant something. Her gold-flecked gaze went to his mouth and did not hurry back. He had been alive 700 years and could not, just then, account for a single one of them. The wheel turned. The buyer was late, and Ambrose, who had not leaned toward anything in a century, leaned. Not yet, Sylvie said, very quietly, not moving an inch away, the not yet carrying every ounce of the wanting the word pretended to refuse. Children first. It is terribly rude to start something you can't finish on account of a work emergency. What is this? He said, looking down at the paper because it was the only safe thing to look at. It's a list, Sylvie said, of everything you've missed. I'm going to make you the whole thing. 700 years. We've got a lot of ground to cover, and you're going to complain about every single one. She was already stepping back, toward Ardell, into the danger, grinning at him over her shoulder like the danger was just one more thing to say yes to. That's item 1. Now come on, let's go be the reason 4 kids see tomorrow. And Ambrose Whitlock, who had come out that night to arrange his own ending, folded the receipt very carefully and put it in the pocket over the place where his heart used to beat, and followed her. That was the moment. He would know it later, looking back across whatever years he had left, however many that turned out to be. Not the wheel, and not the dark of the dead line. This. A receipt, a stub of pencil, a woman walking toward the worst thing in the world and inviting him to come make a list. They were too slow by 1 minute. The buyer had already taken most of it. That was the thing they would only understand later, in the storeroom, with the arithmetic. By the time they reached the wheel, the case had been opened and emptied by 3/4, the bulk of it zipped into a courier bag, and passed to a lean, nervous-turned vampire who was, at the very moment Ambrose spotted them, folding himself into an idling car with the money still in his other hand. "Cyrus," Ambrose called. And it cut through the funfair like a blade through cloth. The car door slammed. The buyer was already pulling away into the city with the greater share of the doses, and no face either of them had a prayer of catching. And the old vampire's head came up, and for one terrible human moment, recognition crossed his face like weather. Then Cyrus ran, and he took what was left of the case with him. Chapter 4. The Buyer, the Stash, and the Choice. He did not run far. That was the thing about the very old, Ambrose knew. They did not run because they were afraid. They ran because running was the only conversation left that they knew how to have. Cyrus Ardell went up the pier, past the shuttered stalls, to a locked service door that he opened with a key he should not have had, into a storeroom stacked with fairground junk, and there he stopped, because there was nowhere else, and he set the case down between his feet and turned to face the 2 people who had ruined his night. "Ambrose Whitlock," he said. His voice was dust. "I heard you were still upright. I did not believe it." Cyrus. "You look tired." A dreadful little smile. "You always look tired. 700 years and still tired. I used to find it restful, sitting with you. 2 men too worn out to pretend." "You emptied a vault of 60 doses tonight," Ambrose said, "and 4 children who will die at dawn without them." "I took what I needed," Cyrus agreed, "and a good deal more to pay for the keeping of it. And if you knew what I know, you would have carried it out yourself." Sylvie had gone quiet against the wall, reading him. Ambrose could feel her doing it, that terrible attention of hers turned full on the old man, cataloguing the shake in his hands, the way he stood over the case like a dog over a bone, the way he'd asked twice at the marrow because some part of him had wanted to be heard, wanted to be caught, wanted someone to make him explain. "You've got people," Sylvie said suddenly, softly. "That's it, isn't it? Not a buyer. A buyer's just how you fund it. You've got people the clinic won't take." Cyrus's head turned toward her, slow, wary. "And who are you?" "I'm the one who runs adjustment. I'm the one who's supposed to help the newly turned, and you're about to tell me the clinic's turning some of them away. And the worst part is, I'm going to believe you, because I've suspected it for a year and I've been too much of a coward to check." The storeroom was very quiet. Overhead, the funfair screamed on, oblivious. "The undocumented," Cyrus said at last. "The ones turned by accident or by cruelty and abandoned. No sire, no papers, no pure-blood name to vouch for them. The clinic serves who it can bill. The rest go into thirst shock in doorways, and the council calls it natural wastage." His hands closed to fists. "I have 11 of them in a house in the east. 11. I have been keeping them alive on scraps and ration drops, and the drops ran out a week ago. And tonight I took what I needed before the youngest of them went under. Because no one else was going to. Because I learned 200 years ago, Ambrose, at a graveside you were also standing at, that no one is ever going to. That is the lesson. You buried the same people I did. You know the lesson." And Ambrose looked at him, at the gray coat and the shaking hands and the fists, and he saw it with perfect clarity, the two roads out of the same grief. He had chosen to end himself slowly, appointment by appointment, starving his own body toward a doctor's needle. Cyrus had chosen to wall himself up around a handful of strays and call it love while the rest of the world could rot. Neither of them had chosen the third thing. Neither of them had chosen to simply keep loving people, knowing exactly what it would cost. Only one person in the room had chosen that. "Cyrus," Ambrose said, "the children in my clinic will die tonight if I do not take that case back. The people in your house will die this winter if you have nothing. We are both correct. That is the trouble with grief. It makes everyone correct and no one kind." "Then we are at an impasse," Cyrus said, "and I am older than you by 2 centuries in every way that has ever mattered, and I will not give it up." "You don't have to," Sylvie said. Both of them looked at her. She'd pushed off the wall. And Ambrose watched her do the thing she was built to do, the thing 700 years had never taught him, which was to walk straight at the frightened creature with her hands open. "You think this is the only stabilizer in the world," Sylvie said, "because that's how the clinic wants you to think. Scarcity's how they bill. But I run the program, Cyrus. I know the supply chain. I know the compounder in Antwerp, and I know that the clinic orders at 1/3 of what it could, on purpose to keep the price up. There is enough stabilizer in the world for your 11 and my 4 and every stray in every doorway in this city. There has always been enough. What there hasn't been is one person inside the building willing to burn her career walking your 11 through the front door and daring the council to say no on camera." She was close to him now, close as she'd been to Ambrose in the dark. "I'll be that person, tonight. Give me the case for my 4 who die at dawn, and I will personally have your 11 registered, dosed, and legal by the end of the week. And if the council wants to stop me, they can explain to a room full of witnesses why children died in doorways to keep the margin up. I am very, very good at making a scene. Ask him." "She is," Ambrose said. "I have known her 4 hours, and I am certain of almost nothing else." Cyrus Ardell looked at the woman who loved being immortal, and something in his old face cracked down a fault line 200 years old. "Why?" he said. "Why would you—" "Because I ran out of time once," Sylvie said, "and someone gave me more, for a stupid reason. And I have spent every day since trying to be worth the accident. This is me being worth it. Give me the case." He gave her the case. For a moment, the old vampire and the older one looked at each other across 200 years. "You found a third road," Cyrus said to Ambrose. Not kindly, wonderingly. "After all of it. We buried the same people, and you found a door I never even looked for." "I did not find it," Ambrose said. "She was standing in it, holding it open, complaining that I walk like a funeral." "You do walk like a funeral." "So I am given to understand, repeatedly, tonight." Cyrus's mouth moved, and in a kinder century it might have been a smile. "At the graves, I told you the lesson was that no one comes. I had it wrong. It was never that no one comes. It was that you have to be the one who comes." He looked at Sylvie, at the woman who had walked straight at a cornered predator with her hands open. "She came for 11 strangers she will never meet. Do not lose her, Ambrose. I have watched a very great many of us decide it was safer to be alone. It is not safer. It is only quieter. And I have had," he said, with 2 full centuries behind the words, "quite enough quiet." It should have ended there. It nearly did. Sylvie had the case open on a crate, counting fast, and Ambrose watched the arithmetic cross her face and turn to stone. "There's 15, she said. 60 out of the vault, and we watched the buyer drive off with most of them. 15 doses left in the case. I sold what I sold, Cyrus said dully, to fund the house. I did not know I would be caught by a ghost and his conscience tonight. 15. Sylvie's hands had gone still, and Ambrose knew now what her hands going still meant, and it frightened him more than the tunnel had. My 4 crash at dawn. Cyrus, how many of your 11 are already going under? All of them, the old vampire said. I told you, the drops ran out a week ago. They will not last the day. Then it's 15 children and it's 15 doses. She looked up, and her face was doing something he hadn't seen it do all night. Which is a miracle. It is exactly, precisely enough for every single person who is dying tonight. And it should be the best news I have ever delivered in my life. Her voice thinned. Except 7 of these 15 are already spoken for. And there it was. The whole night had been walking them toward this room, this crate, this arithmetic. How many, Ambrose said, does the reversal require? Sylvie went absolutely still. Dr. Okonkwo's protocol, Ambrose said, to strip the change out of a vampire my age. The stabilizer is the base compound, is it not? The same compound. That is why you signed for 60 doses tonight. Some of them were mine. Ambrose. How many? 7, Sylvie said. It takes 7 doses of stabilizer to run a reversal. They were ring-fenced from tonight's order. That is why some of what he stole was always yours. Her voice was very level, the way a voice gets when the person is holding it level on purpose. 15 doses. 15 children going under at sunrise. And the needle that ends you needs 7 of them. Take your 7 for the reversal, and 7 of those kids don't see tomorrow. Give the 7 up, and everyone lives. And you stay the exact thing you walked into my clinic to stop being. That is the choice. That is the actual choice. And I hate it. And I am not making it for you. Because it is 700 years of your life, and I don't get a vote. Ambrose looked at the case. 7 small vials, indistinguishable from the rest. 7 doses that were the difference between a body that ended and a body that did not. You've gone still, Sylvie said. The bad still. The storeroom kind, not the tunnel kind. I am thinking. I know. I can hear you not deciding. And it is the loudest thing in this room, and there is a fun fair on the roof. He had wanted to end more than he had wanted anything in a century. He had wanted it so badly he had starved himself gray for it, had come to a clinic at midnight and left the next of kin line blank because there was no one to notify. And then a woman had handed him a receipt with Item 1 written on the back, and it was still in his pocket, over the place where his heart used to be, and the trouble was that a man cannot both leave the next of kin line blank and carry a list of everything he still intends to do. Take them, Ambrose said. Ambrose. Take the 7, dose the 15. He said it plainly, the way Cyrus used to say things, once, precisely, expecting the world to have listened. I have spent 140 years trying to arrange a night with no one left to notify. It appears I have failed. Take them. Sylvie's hands were shaking now, and she let them, and she loaded the case and snapped it shut, and she was crying. Which vampires can do, it turns out, tears being the one thing the body keeps, and she was furious, which he did not understand yet. You don't get to do that, she said. You don't get to finally choose to stay and be a hero about it in the same breath, and then look at me like it's fixed. Because I heard you. I heard you decide to keep existing, and I heard you decide it was for the kids, and not one single word of it was for you. You still think your life is a thing to spend on other people. You just found a nobler cash register. She grabbed the case. Cyrus, come on, you're 11 and my 4. We've got 90 minutes to sunrise and a lot of doors to break. Ambrose can find his own way to the clinic. and she left. And Ambrose stood in a storeroom full of fairground junk, holding a receipt, having given up the ending he'd starved himself toward, and discovered that it had won him precisely nothing. Because he had done the one thing that came naturally, and it was the wrong thing. And the woman who loved being immortal had seen straight through the sacrifice to the small cowardice underneath it, that it is easier to die for people than to admit you want to live. Chapter 5: The List. He caught up with her at the clinic as the sky over the river went the color of a bruise beginning to heal. The 4 were dosed. Cyrus's 11 were en route, and Desmond was at the front desk registering them one by one with an expression of profound and delighted vindication, narrating the council's future embarrassment like a man reading the last chapter of a very long book he had always known would end well. "They'll live," Desmond told Ambrose as he came in. "All 15. She did it. She stood in the lobby and dared the night registrar to refuse a dying child on camera, and he did not dare. And I have worked here 400 years, and it is the finest thing I have ever watched a person do. She is upstairs. She is pretending to do paperwork. You should know that when she pretends to do paperwork, it is because she is too angry to look at someone, and I have observed that the someone is always the one she has decided about." He turned a page. "I am an old man and I catalog things. That is my only party trick. It works every time." Ambrose found her on the roof. It was where the newly turned came, she'd told him, hours and a lifetime ago, to practice the one grief immortality couldn't fix: watching the sky get light and having to go in. She stood at the parapet with her back to the stairs, and she did not turn around, and the eastern edge of the world was beginning, very slightly, to burn. "You should be inside," she said. "Old as you are, you'll go up like paper." "So will you." "I've got 10 minutes. I like to lose." He came and stood beside her, not touching, the two of them cold against a warming sky, and he took the receipt out of his pocket. It was soft now from being held. "Item 1, he read aloud. "The wheel. Don't. Sylvie, you were right. Everything you said in that storeroom was correct, which I find I resent, because you have been dead 60 years to my 700, and you understood in a single evening what I have had a century to get wrong." He turned the receipt over in his fingers. "I did not give up the reversal for the children. That was the lie I told in the room, and you heard it, because you hear everything. I gave it up because somewhere between a claw machine and a dead train, I stopped wanting to end, and I was too much of a coward to say the true reason out loud. So I dressed it as a sacrifice, because a sacrifice asks nothing of me. A sacrifice is just dying with better manners." Sylvie had gone very still, not the low-fuel still, the listening still. "So I will say the true reason now, badly, because I have not said a true thing in a long time and I am out of practice." He looked at the burning edge of the sky and then at her, because she was the harder thing to look at, and he had decided to stop choosing the easy thing. "I have buried everyone I ever loved, and I decided the solution was to love no one, and then to stop, so that the loving could never start again. That was my whole philosophy. 200 years I shared it with Cyrus over graves. And then I met a woman who has also buried people, who has every reason to have made the same bargain, and who instead decided to say yes to everything, and to be worth the accident, and to walk at frightened creatures with her hands open. And I understood tonight that there was never a choice between grief and no grief. There was only ever a choice between an empty forever and a full one. You have been choosing the full one, alone, for 60 years, being brave enough for both of us before you'd even met me. I would like to stop making you do it alone." The sky burned. Neither of them moved toward the door. "You're going to age 0 days," Sylvie said, unsteadily. "You know that. If you stay like this. You're going to watch me not age right beside you, and it's going to be forever. And forever is exactly the thing you came to the clinic to get out of." "Yes," Ambrose said. "You came here to get out of forever, and you're choosing to do forever on purpose, with me. Knowing it ends the way everything you love ends, except now it can't even end, so it's worse, it's forever with the fear built in." "Yes," he said again. "That is the item. Put it on the list. Item 2, choose it anyway. His mouth did the thing that on him passed for a smile, the thing she'd been trying to earn all night. I am told I will complain about every single one. And Sylvie Ames, who loved being immortal, who had been worth the accident, who had made a list on the back of a receipt for a man who wanted to die, made a sound that was half a laugh and half the other thing, and she closed the last cold distance between them and kissed him on a clinic roof with the sun 90 seconds from murdering them both, which was, he would later insist, not a romantic setting, and which she would later insist was the most romantic setting in the history of the world. And they were both right, because that was the trouble and the gift of her. She made everyone correct, and, unlike grief, she made them kind. Inside, she breathed against his mouth. Inside, you enormous idiot. We are not dying the same night you decided to live. They made it in with 40 seconds to spare, laughing. The door slammed on a dawn that would have to try another day. They rode the wheel the next night because Sylvie said item 1 could not wait, and Ambrose said item 1 had waited 700 years and could survive a Tuesday, and Sylvie said that was precisely the attitude the list existed to correct. They went up in a swaying lit gondola over the Black River, the fun fair shrinking to a smear of gold beneath them. Well, Sylvie said, 700 years. Worth the wait? Ambrose looked out at all of it, the sleepless city and the sleeping one, and the newly dead somewhere below learning how to live. It is a slow, cold circle, he said, which returns me precisely to where I began, having gained nothing but height. You hate it. I did not say that. The gondola rocked at the top and hung there. He set a hand on the rail, and then, deliberately, took it off. I said it returns me to where I began. I did not say I minded the company on the way. That is as near to poetry as I intend to come. Do not ask for more. It has been a difficult century. Item 1, she was grinning at him. The whole window grin, the one he had decided somewhere over a dead train that he would spend the rest of his considerable life trying to cause. Done. 699 to go. 700, Ambrose corrected. I have added some. You have not. I have added several. They are private. You are not cleared for them. It's my list. It was your list. It is now a joint document, with clauses above your security level. And at the highest cold point of the slow circle, with the whole living city laid out beneath two people who gave off no warmth and no breath and no pulse and belonged entirely and forever to one another, he kissed her, unhurried, the way a man finally does a thing he has decided he has all the time in the world for. 6 weeks later, the clinic had a Tuesday problem, which was that on Tuesdays, Ambrose Whitlock came to collect Sylvie from her shift and refused to wait quietly. I have been reading the list, he announced to the waiting room at large, holding up a document that had grown considerably. Item 40, a photo booth. Sylvie has informed me it is a small box in which one is photographed 4 times in rapid succession while making, and I quote, an idiot of oneself. I have questions. Chiefly, why? Hi, Ambrose, said the newly turned in the waiting room, most of whom adored him, because there is nothing a frightened newborn vampire finds more reassuring than a 700-year-old man being loudly defeated by modern life. The claw machine, said a young one hopefully. Did you go back for the claw machine? Ambrose's face changed. Sylvie, coming out from the back with her jacket half on, groaned. Don't get him started. I went back for the claw machine, Ambrose said, with tremendous dignity, and produced from under his coat an enormous, hideous, coach-sized stuffed bear. It required an adjustment to the calibration of the claw, which I performed discreetly, as a private correction of a public fraud. And then I won it 14 times in a row until the management asked me to leave. This is the 14th bear. The children in the East Ward have the other 13. There was some concern about my behavior. I regret nothing. Desmond, at the desk, did not look up from his register. For the archive, he said, I will note that on the night in question, a 700-year-old elder recalibrated a rigged claw machine as, and I quote the incident report, a matter of principle, and could not be removed from the premises until the 14th bear. I have logged 4 plagues, 3 revolutions, and the invention of the telephone. It was fraud, Ambrose said. This is my favorite entry, Desmond said serenely, turning a page, because it is the first one in 200 years in which somebody won. He's banned from the pier, Sylvie told the room, delighted. 700 years old, survived 4 plagues and the fall of empires, banned from a fun fair for aggravated bear acquisition. It was fraud, Ambrose said. I fixed the fraud. She kissed him, took the bear, took his arm, and led him out into the dark that belonged to them, the sleepless and the dead. And as they went, he was already complaining about item 41 and item 42, and did she truly expect him to sit through a thing called karaoke, at his age, with his voice? Absolutely not, out of the question. What Sylvie did not tell him, because it was the one thing he did not know she knew, was that she had found the list on the kitchen counter that morning, where he'd left it, and read to the bottom, past all the items she'd written in pencil. Because under item 40, in his careful, ancient, unhurried hand, in ink, he had begun to add his own. Item 41. Watch her hear a heartbeat across a street and smile about it. Item 42. Learn the 8 notes the machine plays forever. Hum them badly. Watch her pretend to hate it. Item 43. Be here in 300 years to see what the ocean does. Item 400. Still be complaining. Item 700. Still be here.